Episode 15, Unification Party, Unification Headquarters, election night, polls are closing. We're going to do our best to live cover this. Adrian, co-host, here he is. Boy
It is.
Wonder, Whiz.
Hi, everybody.
Political
Thanks for
whiz.
joining us. You're going to be watching this tomorrow, but just so you know, it is 8:06 Eastern during the Canadian election. And we just want to watch the election with you and kind of like show you what we're seeing, what's going on, and win or lose for whoever, and just kind of give you our 2 cents on the comings and going of the election. As it stands right now, the Liberals are winning 16 Liberal seats to 7 Conservative seats, and no other party has a seat at all. Jay, what is your takeaway? Speaking of that, like, do you think is there a chance no Greens tonight? Because I hear there's talk that Elizabeth May might lose her seat, and it doesn't look like the PC are going to be getting a seat. I don't think anyone thinks that's happening.
No, I anticipate the Blocs down, the NDP's down. That's what the pundits are saying. That's not me saying. I don't know enough about that, but that's what I'm hearing. This is like we're turning into more of American style politics, 2-party system. I mean, is that going to be the lingering effect of this? Like a more...
Well, I think I don't know, I'm pretty naive when it comes to like political history in Canada because I'm a young person, but I think like the times the NDP's been strong, it's been not just like the climate around the world, it's kind of been more so leader driven. Am I wrong with that assessment? Like, I know like the NDP
I don't know enough about
strong
that.
under Leighton, and they made some gains. Like, I know Tommy Douglas, I believe he was NDP. He made some major impact on how Canada operates in the healthcare department. And he was NDP. But I think like that's what I'm getting at. I think my point to say is like, I think Jagmeet's been such a weak leader that it's not out of the question that with the right replacement, they could
back in the game.
They could instill some life. They could instill some life for sure.
Like, yeah, I'm not suggesting that the trend is towards, but I've wondered, like, we have more of a European style of politics, but we're right next to America. So in long term, how do we go? Is this a sign? We'll find out, but let's watch what you got here.
No, I've just got a live feed for CTV to kind of give us a little bit of a live tracker of what
that guy looks like. Doesn't that guy look like it's a disguise? Tom Osborne?
It almost looks like a cat wearing a human mask or something. Like it's a thumb with Mr. Potato.
No offense to this gentleman. Yeah, like just anyways, that's kind of funny.
Well, he's a winner. Winners can take the hits. Like winners can take the jab. So he won.
I'm not slagging him. It just looks like not real.
Sounded like you were firing shots across the bow, but
no, I don't know him personally, so I'm not that.
All I know is he's from Cape Spear, which sounds cool. That's all I know. I mean, I can't hear these people, so I don't know what they're saying exactly. But I know I was listening to Juno News stream before this stream, and Keean Besky was talking.
Why can't we hear it?
Oh, well, we can hear it. We're just talking.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Well, you are right. That is, let's see what's...
It's early times, fine. We haven't counted that many polls. But if the Conservatives do manage to keep this a fight where it's 2 for 1, and the Liberals were expected by many analysts to run the table in Atlantic Canada, then we might be in for a closer fight than anybody was expecting.
If I may, though, that kind of goes back to what I was saying, where it's like the stronger personality. Like, there's the former head of the NDP, Thomas Mulcair. And
he's a good guy. I like him.
He has integrity-ish.
Yeah.
He has like at least 2 out of 10 integrity, where right now it seems to be negative 2 out of 10. I think.
Well, I would just say he has an ideological difference of opinion. He seems pretty solid with his ethics to me.
Exactly. And I think that's the last decade, the bar's been dropped so low that we would just take it. But yeah, Keean Besky was talking about that riding I can't pronounce. This is kind of a bellwether. I was saying before we turned the stream on. Yeah, St. John Kennebecasis. If it goes
The
conservative, it's a good
Conservatives are
sign.
outperforming the polls right now, which is encouraging. I also agree that the Maritimes will be an interesting place because it is older demographics, and the Liberals were outperforming what they have done in the past with those demographics. So, I'll be curious when advanced voting comes in. A lot of the polling done around that indicated, I think that was an older demographic that was coming out there. So we'll see. But I think if I were the Conservatives in their war room right now, I'd be feeling pretty optimistic about these numbers.
I think back.
I will say the mainstream media's got better numbers than Rebel News has up. So okay, maybe things are turning around.
Well, now, wait a second before you get too excited. I have heard from a number of people today that they count the votes, the pre-votes later, and that skews heavily Liberal, is what he even indicated there a second ago. So I heard two people warn against getting excited about early Conservative, like it looks like early Conservative strong points. They could, as the light gets later on and those pre-votes get added back in, swinging back the other way. But this does look good, but I just
there's the mail-in vote coming in.
Yeah.
Hold on.
When the big enchilada of the votes
Moore's
close,
closing.
we start to see, Quebec, Ontario, to see how things
Labrador.
move.
Kathleen makes a good point about
That riding I
Canada,
mentioned is in New
Scott.
Brunswick.
It was probably
So
the
that's
first
why
region to
it
turn
should be
on
coming up here
Justin Trudeau,
shortly.
largely due to
That's right.
the carbon tax. We talked about Ken McDonald. There were, Sean Fraser wasn't running, then he was. Wayne Long wasn't running, now he is. What are you watching for as this is unfolding right now?
Well, right now you're looking at these numbers, and if you're the Conservatives, you have to say this is outstanding. Let's hope that this trend holds up across the country, but they also have to hope that it holds up.
See, there's that Miramichi Grand Lake.
It's not just
Conservatives
that it's early,
ahead.
but many of these numbers that are on the board are based on 1, 2, 3, 5 polls.
And you mentioned
So it
Fredericton,
could change remarkably. But I am struck by the fact that this is a part of the country where you have an older demographic, and that was supposed to be money for the Liberals tonight. Like if you're over 55, you're supposed to be voting Liberal, and this would not be an indication that you'd be thrilled with so far.
Okay, more analysis to come, but early, still indicative of something.
Let's pop over to another one. Let's see what the.
Just pause it for a second.
Okay. Yeah.
I was going to say that one riding that they said was supposed to be would be indicative of a blue. I'm not going to say a wave. That's crazy, but positive for blue was that Miramichi district. And when they went by, he seemed to be blue. I didn't catch the gentleman's name. Was uphandedly. So smarter people than me had indicated a couple of times today that was something to watch, and has a checkered past of a back and forth of some sort. So,
okay. Don't they call them? I think they call them bellwethers, which
yes.
I don't. Somebody tells me bellwether is like an old piece of farm equipment, but do you know what a bellwether is aside from like the political analogy?
I wonder, or is it? Do you ring the bell because the bad weather is coming?
Or maybe it's like something to do like when the temperature changes, the bell rings or something.
I don't
you
know.
ask,
But,
you were going to be the perplexity man.
Yeah. You find your thing.
Want to know? Bellwether.
I'm on it. Perplexly's telling me.
Oh man. Let's just touch in here. What date is that?
Using that he won't temporarily lie about to get into office. Obviously, him setting the carbon tax to zero goes. I mean, the guy was literally the co-chair of the Glasgow.
The thing is,
I kind of alliance for.
Pause it.
Well, I just need to turn it down a little bit. I've been kind of not watching. Didn't like the Rebel newsfeed today. They were always so glum. I mean, I usually really love the Rebel, but the Juno one was not like blindly optimistic, but it wasn't like so defeated. Like you just like feel that like sad Alberta voter watching the Rebel feed today. Anyways, like
here I've got the bellwether, Middle English term belvedere, which referred to the practice of placing a bell around the neck of the lead, a castrated male sheep in a flock. This allowed shepherds to track the movement of the flock by listening for the bell, even when the sheep are out of sight. dates back to the mid 14th century. So the figurative sense of when you hear the bell or the bell indicates something, that the rest of the sheep are going to be going in that direction. So, or the flock will go in the direction. So if the bell is ringing conservative in the Miramichi district,
it bodes
well for.
Well, I'm a little disappointed. I didn't get to learn about some cool German technology that has like rain bells, but that makes sense and that's very visual. Let's have I mean, I usually, like I said, are they? Yeah, they're okay. Actually, they are going over stuff right now. Let's tune in. Maybe they're talking about the election results and not Mark Carney being Satan.
In Egmont, PEI. Now, the PEI is such a liberal place. It's only got 4 seats, and it almost always goes liberal. But, you know, right now it's 47% for the Conservative and 49% for the Liberal. Now, a win's a win and a loss is a loss, and things are still early. But I don't know. I tell you one thing, though. The odds of a Conservative majority do not. I would say that's not going to happen, and the odds of a Conservative minority, I just don't believe that's going to happen, Sheila. If I had to,
so you can see what I read on their face
based on these early returns, I think it looks like it's going to be a Liberal win. I'm not calling it. I mean, so few districts are in it. It's just Atlantic Canada. What really counts are the voluminous seats in Ontario and BC. But I don't think it's optimistic.
Well,
Wow.
can I just give you an anecdotal report? The Elections Canada website has crashed. My daughter is at the polling station voting for the first time, so she doesn't have a voter ID card. She's down there voting with her ID. And they're having problems because they're saying, well, you shouldn't be here. And she said, well, my parents voted here. And so it's just chaos right now because the Elections Canada website has crashed.
Huh. You talk about the...
All right, let's we're gonna move
find
on.
Somebody else. Those guys are kind of boring.
Well, and again, I prefaced it with I usually like what the Rebel does, and I was like, they've got to be.
I found all kinds of guys today who were all super excited for. I mean, I was maybe a little skeptical of the Conservative majority people, but there were lots of people who said Conservative minority.
More than doable, and yeah, it's just I was just they couldn't have acted better myself when I I just you know what I mean? I just started off with these guys have been kind of gloomy. It's almost like I told Ezra to fucking let her go.
Come on, Ezra. Yeah, what's his problem?
I got a fun update for you.
What does he know? What does he know that we don't?
So I got a live update here with my actual tangible hand in this election, and I think the people and you want to hear it. So I made a couple Polymarket bets a few weeks back, all involving the Canadian election. I've never used this website until a few weeks ago when I made these wagers, but I like politics and a couple of wagers. And one that was kind of interesting, like I'd mentioned earlier, my stepfather, I was telling you before the show, my stepfather had a feeling the Conservatives might even win in New Brunswick. And I had let him know, I had made a wager on that they wouldn't win the most seats because I hope they do. But I bet $15 that the Conservatives would win the most seats in New Brunswick, and it paid $280. If they did, it was just a shocking, ridiculous return. Where you're just well, okay, I'll take those odds. So today I checked it after my stepdad left, and it actually had doubled. So I could have sold my $15 wager for $30 an hour ago, and right now I could sell it for $75. That's just for the province of New Brunswick. So that bodes well.
So the gambling markets are calling that maybe New Brunswick does better.
My portfolio just doubled on Perplexity. Sorry to interrupt you there, Jay. I was just kind of excited.
No.
Yeah, and I really also don't really, like I said, it's my first time, so I'm not really quite certain. So, here, maybe you'll like this one. So I have $282.49 bet that the Liberals will not win a majority. And $282 and 49 cents pays $672. So we'll call it 2.7, you know, not triple, but not kind of feels it could be either way. A good double on just Liberals to not win a majority. Right now, I could sell my $282 bet for $430. Right now.
So if you were right now, you were to cash out all your bets, you'd have made a good money make. You've made some good money on all bets most so far.
At this very moment. Technically, no. Technically, I lost a bet because I lost $50 bet that the Liberals would be flipped in the polls by the Conservatives. I lost that earlier, like an hour ago.
Okay, so but what I'm saying with the bets we're talking about right now,
I could sell that Liberal one, and it owes me no money, and every other bet is just free money riding in the air because I bet $400 or something.
So that's pointing towards maybe the people that were saying that the Conservatives were underpolled and they're going to be doing better, much like we said before the American election. People don't tell the truth, don't answer the polls. They're at work. The guy on the combine doesn't take the phone call. So
yeah, new Canadians don't like talking to people.
Yeah, so the Conservatives are going to spring from the
shy Tory voter is going to come from the corner and show up.
Yeah.
And maybe because like I know myself, I voted at Elections Canada, like it feels like 2 weeks ago now. I bet you I might not have been the only one, like especially nowadays, like with all the talk of like the voting being like commonplace in their lexicon in the last 10 years with the states and stuff like that. I think a lot of people will probably had a little bit more mind to be like, you know what, let me just get this out of the way. I got a minute. It's right there. There's like 4 cars in the parking lot. So maybe that like preemptive vote could have been, who knows? You're right. The more educated people are leaning that it was a Liberal in the earlier vote, more likely, 60-40 type of thing, it seems like. But it might have, maybe it's 50-50. It's just sad to see Ezra and Sheila so downtrodden.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. What do they know that we don't know?
That's what I want. Like, and it's almost like maybe I don't want to know what they know. Like me and you at least are smiling.
Well, who cares? Ultimately, who cares?
Well, ultimately, true. At the end of the day, it's a mess regardless. But they can't take our smile away. Either way.
No. Well, I like the entertainment of it. The people that I saw today where I work, everyone was very forthwith talking about the election. Obviously, people weren't saying who they voted for. People were trying not to get into conversations about who they were voting for, but the overall consensus was there would just be a lot of relief when the vote was over. That seemed to be the vibe that I was getting from the old people who I was talking to today. They would just be happy when this whole thing is over.
I think everybody will agree on that.
Yeah.
I think the sad truth to that is that like the likelihood, it's very likely that whoever wins, it'll be a minority. And if I'm not mistaken, that means we're probably going back to the polls soon, right? Because I don't know,
well, I mean, if they do, let's say they do go back to the polls within under a year. I mean, the more people, like you've said many times before, your opinion was the more people get to know Carney, the less they like him. And did seem to be a last few days sort of swing, sort of Poilievre's way. So perhaps, if a few more weeks of it would have been a different story. I've heard someone say that.
That I heard thrown around today, which was like people were talking a lot about Mr. Carney's budget. And that's a very good point, because if you hear a lot of like quote unquote like respectable Canadians who are like voting Liberal, they always talk about how he's the banker, he's the economist. It's like, yeah, but he's spending more than Trudeau. Like he's worse money than Trudeau is. I just
don't think people don't care. They just they spend like they do with their own homes. Crazy. Oh yeah, this guy, he's good.
And what to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, AZ says, is Pierre Poilievre going to lose? You're asking, no. I even had someone ask me, and they were being very honest, like very genuine about it. They were like, I was door knocking in his area because I think they traveled out there for fun, but they're from Calgary, and they're like, it was very 50-50 in some of the suburbs. I'm like, If you go out though to the acreages, it's going to be like dictatorship numbers for Poilievre. That's the thing. It's like in Alberta. This is the example I always use. My friend Chantal de Jong is the candidate or the MLA for the riding of Chestermere-Strathmore. It's like going to her riding and concluding that she might lose because you door knocked some of the Calgary bedroom communities in her riding or Chestermere. If you go to Strathmore or you go to Wheatland County or Rocky Mountain County or Rocky View County, she's winning by Idi Amin numbers. It's nuts. Poly at 45% on Polymarket. Wow, that is an improvement since I last saw it at 22% this morning.
Yeah, I always thought the Polymarket number was insane at 20%. You know, I know people took a good bet on that. Like, I mean, Polymarket could just be. I mean, I don't know exactly how Polymarket works, but like, you could just, if you dump money into it, right? And how many people are betting on the Canadian election? Like, could foreign actors, like, you know, the Chinese, just dump money into Polymarket and then as a demoralization on?
You're part of that. That's you.
$100,000 with some.
I'm for interference, Jay.
Potentially ineffective front groups, or do you throw $100,000 onto Polymarket and look like Carney's super popular and make people financially invested in him winning?
Yeah, I mean that's a good, like, I mean there are definitely problems with gambling on politics and gambling on everything. You know, is that?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, no shit.
I got a text from my dad.
All right.
He turned on.
These guys they're not. I kind of want the play-by-play, and like I don't really like. We've got the opinion. We've had months of opinion, and
well, somebody will have it. See, go to CBC and see what they're saying.
Well, I think I got CTV up here for now. I'll pull them up. Let's get them playing. I look into CBC. Oh, I think I just clicked on the election special.
Saw the collapse of the Liberals and Stephen Harper majority, and the NDP formed the opposition. So that is not going to happen this time. The NDP could face what could be their worst. The staff for the NDP, Jennifer Howard, a few minutes ago, and what she told me is, regardless of what happens, there is so much respect and admiration for Mr. Singh that if he's not going to be pushed out, that they will leave space for him to decide on his own as to what he will do. But this is the.
I remember I heard, I don't know if I mentioned it already, but apparently if the Conservatives keep what they had, which was 8 seats in the Maritimes, that's a good night. And it looks like...
paint for you and explain to you as the evening continues.
It looks like that's the smallest screen in the world. What's wrong with you, CBC?
Very early, but still
all right, whatever.
A positive sign. There does seem to be a swing, and there's something in that I've been wanting to watch for.
Well, it looks like the Liberals gained, like, they're 9 seats in the Maritimes now, so they gained a seat.
The Liberal Party in the polls, and notionally that's long-term New Democrats.
The Conservatives.
Yeah.
Not to waste their vote when it comes to standing up to Donald Trump. But one of the things Mr. Poilievre has done very effectively is to reach out to traditional private sector unions and union members, working people. I mean, if you look at the kinds of events he's done hundreds over the past 3 years, very typically working people in small manufacturing, food processing, where people make stuff. And he has received far, far more endorsements from unions than any Conservative campaign at the federal level I can recall. And so, and you also see this where a significant polling advantage for Conservatives amongst people who don't have university degrees, typically in blue-collar occupations. So I think we may beginning to see a shift of some traditional working New Democrat voters to the Conservative column. That appears to be the case so far in Atlantic Canada.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that is something that Doug Ford has done very successfully in Ontario, for sure. Randall, do you want to weigh in there?
Well, I think it's been a strong strategy of the Conservatives. It's just unfortunate that their record in the House of Commons doesn't match that when it comes to working people. They've been, as governments, prone to order workers back to work in strike situations. They've voted against any of the improvements to employment insurance. So
all right, well, we'll put them on mute and get back to our commentary. I guess we can get them off for now. It looks like so far so good. I like what I hear about the incredible shame that will come to Jagmeet Singh, that he may not win his seat, and then he may lose, party status.
So I would like all of that to happen if anybody's asking me.
Yeah. I mean, imagine a world where Pierre Poilievre wins a majority government and Mark Carney and Jagmeet Singh do not win their seats. I actually think that in that world, Mark Carney would rather not have won his seat. He'd probably rather be like, I'm going to go back to the tennis court.
I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I hear Klaus is out of the way. I'll slide into his old robes.
I'll hang out with the Nestle guy.
Yeah.
But, I mean, so far so good. If you're hoping for a conservative win, I mean, at least.
So you heard that they needed to maintain 8 seats in the.
Is a good start.
If they maintained 8 seats, that was considered a win. If they maintained,
a good start. Like it was like
a good start.
Yeah, I would say out of all the things, it would be like the vibe seemed like a 57. It's not 100, but it's certainly not a 30. It's like okay, it's more good than bad. It's a slow, the bellwether. But I don't know if we've seen that ridings results. Maybe I'll look for that one. There's probably a map that I could find and see what that riding. Okay, there we go. Let's take a look here at Atlantic Canada. Can you hear that sound? I don't know where that came from. I just went.
It sounds like you were typing.
Oh man, CTV, you suck. It looks like. Oh, that's wrong province. Wow, this map is horrible. I wonder why mainstream media is failing.
Well, they have a whole crew here. We're just.
That riding I said did not go. It went 61 Liberal, 35% Conservative.
Are you sure you weren't talking about something in Newfoundland, St. John's, something?
No, it was the one right there out of St. John. St. John, Cabasaka.
Kennebecasis.
The Liberals won by the looks of it. They're at 60% of the vote, and the Conservatives were at, it was like 3,500 to 2,000. But, I mean, your bellwether came through, so we're 1 for 1. I guess
it's not mine. It's just what some people said on the radio. I'm only regurgitating what some people. But the guy who said it, but some people are regurgitating with more,
But neither of those people are on this podcast.
But neither of them are here. So
we're both standing on the shoulders of giants.
That's a great way of putting it. Absolutely.
Sounds a lot better than just stealing people's perspective. That sounds pathetic.
Well, I'm giving credit where credit is due.
Me too. Let's see what Juno's up to. Like they gotta be a little bit more upbeat than Rebel, and maybe less like Chinese gambling bribery money than.
When does this whole thing shut down? When is it over across the country? At what time? Our time?
I recall it being super early last time. It felt like it was like 10 o'clock last time.
Well, that's what I feel.
So I think we're about an hour and a half away from that.
No, it's 9:30. 10 o'clock would be a half hour.
Eastern Standard.
Well, I'm only talking about our time.
The most Jewish is
Thornhill, I believe. You were the one. I meant 10 o'clock Eastern Standard when I said what I said.
And vote one way. It's definitely very, they are able to swing that riding. So it could go conservative. And so we're watching that. And that would make it the only conservative riding in Montreal. Because if he gets conservative ridings at all, it won't be in Montreal, it'll be further north. So having a conservative base in Montreal would be very important to Poilievre, and he would, I think, Neil Oberman would for sure get a very good position in the government, and he would have influence. So that's the one.
I just want to interrupt here and let our viewers know that we are calling 2 ridings now officially for the Conservative Party. Carol Ainsley of Long Range Mountain will be the next member of Parliament, one of the newest member of Parliaments for Newfoundland and Labrador. She has now exceeded 10,000 votes, over 54% of the popular vote in her riding, which is absolutely surreal for the Conservative Party in that area. They knew that they were going to do a little bit better in this part of the province, but they're doing exceptionally well there. Not too far behind it is Terra Nova and the Peninsulas, which will be another upset. If they do secure that, that will be the second handover from the Liberal Party.
Is that your grandmother there on the right, Adrian?
Early hours of the campaign.
Yeah.
What we're calling for the Liberal
She's
Party,
somehow get in here
super quickly. Avalon,
back from the dead,
Labrador,
to tell us about the election.
Acadia Bathurst. That's Serge Cormier's riding, and then of course. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. It's Besjor, I think. It's Dominic LeBlanc's riding. Of course, that was going to go Liberal, and it did. It went resoundingly Liberal at almost 60%. That has now been called as well. And just as I'm reading this, there is another declaration for Tobik Medikak. I am sure I'm butchering these terribly. You'll have to forgive me. But Richard Bragdon, the Conservative Party candidate, has secured that seat. He was an incumbent, though, unlike the two Conservative ridings that we've already called. That is an incumbent seat secured for the Conservative Party. So right now, I think it is too early to say whether this is going well or not. I think we'll bring our decision desk back soon to actually give an authoritative statistical analysis of whether it's a good night or a bad night for the Conservative Party, as we're just projecting into the evening. But right now, you can't be too upset with two upsets of big Liberal names.
Wow, this is so interesting, Barbara. Like, I want to get your thoughts on this, because it seemed that the pollsters were all pretty unanimously saying that this was going to be a huge Liberal blowout tonight.
Yeah.
And I don't know that this is any early predictor. It could just be a few anomalies. But I'm deeply skeptical of the polls. I know a lot of our audience is as well. What do you think of the polls and the way that they've sort of all followed each other as a pack, like kind of mirroring what
I think they
each
spent
other's
like
saying?
$50.
I have every election lately, I have less a kind of confidence in the pollsters. I think what happened in the United States at the last election just blew my mind how far off the mark the pollsters were. And so I have taken the ones who say it's going to be a Liberal blowout with a grain of salt. I don't think I ever came around to thinking, okay, they're so far off the mark that it's going to be a Conservative blowout. I don't think that. But I mean, I have a very, I think it's a very well-founded hope. And hearing about these seats that Cian just told us about seems to me a very good sign that.
Well, I can add some color to that. Long Range Mountains for the Conservatives, our Juno News decision desk modeling was projecting that the Conservatives would win that by 47%. And for context for everyone, if you just want a little bit of hope here, they're now winning it by 54%. So that's exceeding it by almost 8% of our models, which were already
more good news
aggressive, given how we were, our Juno News neighbor poll that we had been relying on already showed better results for the Conservatives than pretty much any other pollster in the country. And now with our models, with that aggressive conservative polling, I shouldn't say conservative, but with that aggressive polling for the Conservatives, they're exceeding that in that one riding. So it's just one note, and it could be a regional difference. Up to 5%, you can say it could be caused by a good or bad candidate. Of course, the majority of voters vote based off of who the leader is. It goes leader, party loyalty, and then it goes down to who the candidate is, whether they're a good candidate, have they been a long-time community advocate, volunteer, or whatever. Maybe they're a star candidate. That would only change the actual results by about 5%. And that could be what we're seeing here, but we're not, you can't discredit yet that maybe this is just turning out to be better for the Conservatives than expected.
I certainly hope you're right. I've just, the last couple of days, I've been so antsy and jittery. I can't settle down to anything. So I'm so glad this is going to be over in a few hours, whatever. But
It's been a whirlwind for a few months now. Ever since Justin Trudeau announced that he'd be stepping down, we knew that it was time to put the seatbelts on because it was going to be a bumpy ride. And now we are at the point in the night where,
well, Jay, seems to be it seems to be going in a certain direction, which I mean it's off to a decent start. I recall with like the last couple Trudeau elections being like not this optimistic at this point. I feel like kind of being sad the whole time. Like it was just red waves.
Well, I mean, we have been browbeaten in the media to believe that, a Liberal. So the fact that it hasn't been a blowout, you're right. That does.
So
we feel lucky.
Can you see my screen here?
Yeah.
This just a minute ago was $95. I was thinking of just taking the money. It feels like.
What is it now?
$15 is $76.25. I could just take that right now for Conservatives to win the most seats in New Brunswick.
Pretty good deal.
$76 to win $250 at this point.
Does that break even?
No, break even is this one up here, where I could sell my $282 bet for $450 right now, and that's the Liberals not to win a majority.
And that gets you back in the game.
Gets me back in the game, yeah. And then I could just leave this. Will Jagmeet Singh lose his seat? I had $19. That's worth $8 right now. It's looking like he's losing his seat.
So even if you lose money, even if you win on that one.
Yes, correct. Because it's down 56% from my initial investment. That's what gambling is, an investment. But I will keep you posted on that. But you could just see the tones, right? From like earlier how I commented, like Rebel just seemed a little gloomy, and then like everybody else, even the side that wasn't like super cheerleader, they were like, "There's a way. It's going that way. It's not a no yet. Calm down."
So what is the prognostications say? The prognosticators say about Quebec. What is Quebec supposed to do? Like I know they're saying that the Bloc should underperform in comparison, and the Liberals were supposed to do really well. Conservatives have zero hope in Quebec. Some hope, have some seats.
I hear some hope along the border. Conservatives should be okay, like along the American border with Quebec. That's apparently where they do well. Apparently a couple outside of Quebec City might go their way. Maybe some in or one in, but like I think it was the Juno that was just talking about that like there's a possibility that they could win a seat in Montreal, which I feel like if the Conservatives won a seat in Montreal, that almost like would be the election. Like the
that
Beltway.
Would be you would call it?
I would call that? It's over. I would just stop the counting. And then like if I was the Prime Minister winner, I would just end it and I would get on a plane to the District of Columbia, and I would go negotiate with Donnie for unification, and I would sell the country out.
Well, you saw, of course, he was pushing our 51st state narrative. I like how cherished we are.
That's another thing that's a positive point. Sheila that was when Sheila was Happy Day. Her and her friend were talking about how exactly, like, you never heard Trudeau call us cherished. Like,
no.
You never, you know what I mean?
We're a postmodern, not even a country. That's what he said about us.
Yeah, no culture, no nothing.
We're colonizers and
racist.
Toxic.
Yeah. So that's exactly.
Trump wants to cherish me.
I think we've never discussed that, but it is true. That phrasing there. It is nice. It sounds warm and embracing.
Quebec has 10 seats.
Total? No.
No, conservative seats.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So 10 conservative seats. So as that unfolds, we should be watching up, down, turn around, whatever.
Well, I would say, I don't want to sound like, but CTV seemed to be the kind of the best for the play-by-play so far tonight. So I guess we'll
maybe Ezra will get a little pep in his step. We can pop back maybe if things start looking up. Hamilton or something goes CCP or
I like your optimism.
PPC.
No, the PPC can't win anything.
No, I wonder. I like somebody said Bernier flies up every 4 years from his mansion in Florida to run for the party. At least I live here as party leader. You know, I didn't get my paperwork on time, and it's a lot of other, you know, personal matters and diplomatic matters to attend to. But
I'm gonna put the Rebel on, but without hearing it, it does look like they're just laying into Mark Carney again. Which again,
let's see. Let's guess. Let's look at their faces and guess.
This guy looks like he's talking about he saw somebody get gunned down. Like he's describing.
No, okay, that's your guess. Okay, no, my guess is Trump tariffs. Okay, play it.
Convoy arrived with the most controversial people they could find in there, because they knew that they had a media strategy in place already to vilify the convoy as it was driving towards Ottawa. And once it arrived there, they wanted to exploit that opportunity because, like Ezra was saying, you know, citizen journalists, you had people that were.
This is a message I like any other day, you know, relatively in doses. But like right now, I kind of just want you to describe the car accident that we're.
Yeah, our guesses were more interesting than what he was talking about.
It sounded like a middle between a shooting and America because it was a bit of both. CTV, CTV has earned our trust so far, but we don't play fast and loose. We will drop them like a hot potato if they.
Yeah, if they don't bring us the news exactly like we like it, they're done.
They're dyed-in-the-wool conservative voters in most of the country, but we've been talking a lot about Atlantic Canada,
right?
And they're a bit of a battleground in Atlantic Canada.
Absolutely, and some ridings, as we know, can include 1 or 2 segments. So you and your neighbor may be in 2 totally different segments. So we're going to zoom into Nova Scotia here, and we're actually going to look at the riding of South Shore St. Margaret's. Now, if you're not familiar with riding titles, perhaps this is the home of Lunenburg and the Bluenose, if you've had the luck to travel down there. So who lives here? Who are these voters?
Well, the primary segment here is that old rustic that I just mentioned. So these are retirees or people contemplating retirement. They tend to be on the lower middle income scale, and they make up most of this riding. Now, remember, in this riding, the Conservatives won by about 8 points back in 2021. You know, you've got a lot of people here who are considering retirement. They're on modest incomes. If you look at the impact of the tariffs and the current environment here, they tend to be in jobs that are high risk and they have high financial vulnerability. So they're going to be concerned about what's to come to finance their lifestyles.
And patriotism. When it comes to being a proud Canadian, they're all in.
Well, emotions matter, right? And in this election, as we've seen, they're very patriotic. They've got high Canadian pride. They're willing to pay more for Canadian products. So you know, that's.
And something else, sorry, Rupin, very important to people in Nova Scotia is healthcare as well.
Absolutely. So a lot of people here, as they age, are in fair or poor health. So they're going to be looking for who they think is going to best maintain that healthcare system.
Okay, and look how close it is, Rupin. So we have the Conservative incumbent, Rick Perkins, in the lead at the moment by just 102 votes. So a really tight race happening here between these 2 segments of the population.
That's right. It'll be interesting to see if the polling says with the NDP vote going elsewhere potentially this time, where that goes and whether the Liberals could pick this up.
Okay, a very tight race in this one riding. Back to you.
It's fascinating data when you look at it, Vashti, because it shows you what are the ballot box issues, what's driving people to the polls, even though the dominant narrative has been one person, Donald Trump, south of the border. It is important, but there are so many other issues at play too in this election.
Yeah, people really care about what's going to happen with that.
So let's take it over to Anne-Marie with her panel. Anne-Marie.
Well, I'm not older or rustic, I don't think anyway, but I'm heading fast.
Good for Carol. That Madawaska riding is Liberal.
I wasn't talking about that.
It's an urban.
Yeah, you said something different. You're
divide.
right.
Tom, I see you nodding there. You and I were having this conversation earlier.
I completely agree with what you're saying, because we talk about division based on provinces and resource producing provinces versus industrial and so forth. But you notice across Canada that there is a big division between the large urban centers and the rural areas. The large urban centers tend to be dominated by the Liberals, think Toronto, Montreal. But in the outlying areas, in Ontario and in Quebec, you see a lot of blue. In Quebec, it could be two shades of blue. It could be conservative or bloc. But it's a reality across Canada. And whatever else happens tonight, when we come out of this election, there's going to have to be some bridge building. And it's not just province to province. I think we have to take into account the reality of rural Canada as well. And I don't think we do that enough. I live in the country, by the way.
Yeah. James, you're nodding there.
Yeah, sure. And that's part of it, like bridging the two conversations, that and then the numbers that we're looking at
I
here.
don't like
right?
the NDP, but what he just said there was very reasonable.
22 to 10, the seat totals
Stop
now.
it if you're going to say something.
Sorry, you like the NDP, but Mulcair, what he just said there was very reasonable. Like talking about regardless who wins, there's a divide, and the urban-rural, which is one that gets forgot about a lot in the multitude of divides we have right now to pick from.
Well, that's what I was pointing to. Like we've sort of touched on during a lot of the shows in the past, that there's this like chaos, masculine, feminine, sort of Jordan Peterson clash of, two sides of humanity. And then you have this urban rural divide, this conservative, this liberal. That's why I was kind of indicating that is Canadians' future going to be more of a push towards a more clear two-party system? I mean, are we just at some sort of inflection point where these two ideologies, realities, they're all clashing together at one time, and this is that's what's happening. So I don't know, because it seems like, look, I mean, I know the Bloc here has got one. I'm even looking at the NDP numbers. I don't know how the East Coast traditionally votes with regards to NDP. But I mean, you're looking even Green, like they're not even in contention. There's thousands of votes for red, blue, and then low hundreds for other in any of these locations. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, well, they say necessity is the mother of invention, and because like if there is a change on that scale, where like let's say there was hypothetically a world where there was laws that applied to cities, almost like city states, where like the laws applied to the cities, but like maybe there was different laws that applied to rural parts of the country. There's small cases now that you can make for like governing like that, because there's policies that could work in downtown Toronto that would just be a waste of resources in rural Bancroft, as an example.
Well, absolutely. Right? I mean, that you almost think that would just make common sense, like a universal building code for every inch of the province, rural northern Quebec, a guy's got to build a house exactly the same as, someplace else.
It's
downtown.
Yeah. And
it's ridiculous.
But back to like how I preface this with necessity being the mother of invention, like a change like that won't come because like there's no way everybody is gonna just be like, okay, like let's overturn the apple cart because it works. Like what, like the people in charge right now, whatever's working is working for them. So like they'll never make a change until like they absolutely have to. And I mean, crime on the rise.
I would guess that it will happen. It will, because the cities collapse and people escape to the countryside, and then people, like certain places, will start looking after themselves a little better than other places, and that will be. I mean, there's a difference between, just because there's rules everywhere, we should know better than anyone. It's how the rules are enforced, and if there's not the will, the number of people, the employees, the infrastructure to enforce the political will, like, building codes, food and health regulations, and all these things that keep the bureaucracy going, you have to have people be able to enforce it. And if you don't have the tax revenue, you don't have you don't have that happening, then it'll only be the cities that they can enforce it. Like, with Huxley's book, A Brave New World, they talk about, here's your soma drugs, and here's your, no strings attached sex. Here's your carrot. there is no stick. I mean, they just leave you alone. If you want to go live in the woods out there, there were people who wanted to do that and they left them alone to do it. So there won't be the political will or the resources to enforce it out in the hinterland.
Let's see what Harjit. I think that's Harjit Singh, the former defense minister, or current one.
It really contrasts significantly
I might be
in the
mistaken.
rural urban areas. I mean, Goody Hutchings, who when I worked with her, she really kind of emphasized the importance of what we needed to do. For example, when there is a climate crisis like hurricanes that are coming up, it impacts communities very, very differently.
He sounds like
and
a
I know
politician.
that Mark Carney's first stop was actually into the Atlantic when the campaign.
All right, yeah, he's not saying anything of substance.
Great radio voice, though.
Yeah, you can see why he won. Like, that's all right. Well, no, and that's exactly it, right? Like, and you know, and you know that you when you were talking there, kind of made me the joke in my head. I was thinking, well, I was like, what are they going to have Soylent Green in the countryside, or is there only going to be Soylent Green in the city? But like,
well, I'm not anticipating the collapse like tomorrow. Like, oh, there's a collapse. Like, no, it's just I can already see it. Like where we live, you've got X amount of the population like way high is above 65, and there's just not. It's not. I don't mean collapse where there's the the roving bands Mad Max style.
It's erosion. Yeah, it's slow.
Yeah, it's just it takes 2 weeks to get a plumber to fix a simple leak, and then a year later it takes 4 weeks, and then 5 years later it takes 3 months, and then that's what I'm anticipating is going to happen. Regardless of who wins,
we're already on pace for that. Like we're in the another thing nobody talks about like on a mainstream level is like the incompetency crisis that's plaguing society. Like it's all fun and games when it's just your coffee being wrong, which it's still not fun and games when that happens. But then it's like your coffee's never right, and then it's like little things or can't get anyone to return a call, and yeah, it just seems like there will be a change, but I think like. It won't be like by our will. It'll be like by our necessity.
No, that's exactly it. It'll just be that's just what happens. It won't matter what these policies people will be putting in place. It'll just, eventually you can enforce everybody within 500 kilometers of the city center to do what they're told, and then 10 years later, you can only really enforce it 400 miles from a dense city center, and then 3, then 2. Just
then
the concentric circles.
Just the walls. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You just won't be able to. How do you get? I was even talking to the health inspector the other day, and there's a remote island that there's a handful of places on, and they have to, none of them want to do it because there's a 2-hour ferry ride each way. So they've got to organize a day and make sure they don't miss the ferry to go. They're still doing that and they're getting out there eventually. But do you honestly think that's a perfect example? Do you think they get out there as much as they get to the McDonald's downtown? Probably not. And then that would be the first to go if you had not enough people that you get out there. Not twice a year to the island, you get out once a year, and then maybe every other year, and then, this is how it happens.
And then one year, the ferries broke, so they just don't go.
Yeah, and then they just stop.
Turns out the ferry never got fixed, and then nobody talked to them about the ferry, so then they just stopped going one day.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. Hey, I'd like to see Sean Fraser lose this seat. He was annoying.
I don't think he's going to.
Sean Fraser?
Yeah, I don't think so.
He was losing by a little bit there.
Oh, was he?
That's the only reason I said it. I'm not.
He was supposed to be the party leader.
I know he was the Minister of Housing. Trudeau had him running around saying a lot of crazy stuff. But, I still feel like at this point in the election, I'm feeling better about I'm also coming in more pessimistically than I have in the last elections. The last 3 elections, I was so sure Trudeau was not going to win. So I'm like a battered spouse at this point with it. I don't even know what's going on. I'm just coming in and I'm just hoping for a good day today, and that's it. All you can ask for is the sun.
I'm to the point with my predictions is that I've been consistently wrong over the last 12 years so many times that now my game is to think deep in my heart what I honestly think will happen and then say the opposite. But then I know it doesn't really work like that because, you know, you can't trick your unconscious mind, or at least I can't. But so I don't know. I have no idea. I've been wrong every single time about everything.
Yeah, and you were saying it was going to be a conservative majority this time, so that ergo we should be okay. We should be just fine.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know about that, but I do know that say that thing you were looking at a second ago said the next polls close in like they should have been closing in the next probably like few minutes, so there might be updates rolling in here.
Let's give Juno a chance to earn our trust back. They didn't really lose it. They were just boring.
Someone who's
for a second
worked in the elections in the past, and they work currently for a campaign, and they basically ran me through a high-level process of they do it. It's weird, but it's normal. And when they do it,
I think he's talking about taking the ballots home.
I guess they have
Read
some
that
sort
story?
of a seal.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
Seal it. They sign off on it, and when they come back in the morning, that seal is still in place. That they did communicate to me that he felt that there was very, very, very low chance and low probability of tampering happening. But I think all Canadians can basically agree it's a very weird thing to be able to take ballots home with you. I find it very strange. I think it's something that definitely needs to be changed. There needs to be a much better process for it. I don't like it whatsoever. Despite, my concerns being relatively alleviated based on what this gentleman told me, I simply just don't like it.
What do you think of that, Sam?
Okay, so again, we wanted an update. That's a great story that they're covering there.
No, we might as well talk about that. You heard it. You bring us up to speed on what happened. Some workers took home.
A fella with a YouTube channel went to vote today. I believe it was in Hamilton, and he saw. I'm going to put the CTV on in the background quietly while we chat. He saw an election worker leaving with a box of ballots, and he decided to follow the guy home. Now, I don't know how you happened to catch the election worker leaving with the box of ballots, but whatever, you did. And he followed the guy, and the guy ended up going home, and he confronted him in his parking lot and his driveway. And that's what that guy just said right there. Now that's all I know. Like, it seems to be the guy didn't run from it. He didn't deny it. But I think it was like common practice. Like, it wasn't like, to him, it was like, oh, this is just the policy. Which there's a case to be made that, like, maybe it is safer than the mall they were holding the Elections Canada in.
I saw the reports of ballot tampering, and I wasn't concerned about it. I figured it was some sort of misunderstanding.
Jeepers, Southern Ontario. You're just gonna I say we start a new country. We sell everything red there to the central bank, pay off our debt, and we let the central bank run that area. We just start a new country. And
Google, sell it to Google.
Yeah, exactly. Google and I don't know, one of those European old school companies can buy it.
Oop, the Bloc just lost their seat.
Yeah, the thing is that when we look at British Columbia,
not talking
it's a toss-up between the Conservatives and the Liberals. The Conservatives do very well in the interior, but when you zoom into the lower mainland, you can see the Liberals benefiting from those three-way splits.
See, and I thought, that's another one where, like, I remember when Doug Ford won for the first time, and then, like, 4 months later, those same ridings in the 905 and whatnot voted for Trudeau, and it boggled my mind because, like, didn't a lot of those ridings just vote Conservative in the provincial election, and they're gonna now just? That's what always kind of confused me. But maybe that's me.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to get in the mind of the voter. I have no idea.
There's probably a bit of that where some people are more apt to vote in one election and maybe not the other, and maybe you like the guy for another.
Well, I know my parents have changed parties that they vote for. They're more of a what's happening here and now kind of thing. Not, no blue, no matter who or whatever. They're not that.
That's true. And I know those people do exist. I'm not saying it's like all rigged by whatever. I'm saying It's just odd to me that in such a short time, right? Like less than half a year.
Yeah, but I mean, think about it. There's people who probably, it's a game to be, Game of Thrones, right? You get to cast your vote for your, because you heard people say that this is that and that's this. So to get back at Trump is that. So everybody gets to play their strategic part, and that could change from time to time. Sway.
I heard today too. Apparently, Poilievre's wife, I believe her name is Anna, was the only one. She traveled with him on the campaign the whole time. Apparently, like even Trudeau's wife didn't do that, or even they analogy they use, like even Trump's wife didn't do that, and they had like a proper plane to hang out in. But so that was cool to see that Pierre's a solid dude. Like, I mean, all right, maybe they're telling us some stuff here that.
Yeah, I think they're all looking at these results and waiting. They continue to say that this is early times right now, Vashi. But you'd have to think by looking at that and the number of times that the Liberals have been out to Atlantic Canada. I mean, you just have to think about how Mark Carney went out there and had that sort of impromptu street hockey game in one of the laneways there. And that was in Colchester, Cumberland, and that riding that they were hoping to take.
It was impromptu,
I'm sure. They might be just a little bit disappointed right now as they're seeing some of these numbers come up. I did reach out to the campaign, ask where Mr. Carney is and how he is feeling. He is watching these results come in from a hotel in downtown Ottawa. And somebody from his campaign did tell me that he's confident with the campaign that they've run, and they believe it's now up to Canadians to make their voices heard, and they will continue to be watching these results. But certainly a number of staffers that I've been trying to talk to here, asking them about them, and they said, look, we've put in the work at this point. Now it is up to the Canadians to decide, and it is this going to be a very long night. I think everybody in this room, staff included, believe that it will be a very long night, and they're hoping that these numbers continue to shift in their direction. Vashi.
All right, thanks so much, Mike. Very much a wait and see thing. I'm looking at some results coming in from Central Nova, of course, long held by the McKay dynasty. Sean Fraser in a fight for his seat at this point.
Bryce Jenkins.
It is a dramatic story. Sean Fraser, a minister who held two big portfolios under the Trudeau government, in particular immigration and housing at some pretty crucial times for each of those files, said he was quitting. Then Mark Carney came on board. He said he's coming back right as the election started. And now it's not a given at all for him.
And that's what makes this election so exciting. Mike said this is going to be a long night. Certainly some very, very interesting storylines right across the country. Let's go to Abigail Beeman, who is with the Conservatives now. Abigail.
Well, the next polls close in 23 minutes before any of these
Hi, I'm
TV
glad you brought up
folks.
Central Nova because I was with the Conservatives in Central Nova at that rally where they had.
By New Brunswick, Conservatives to win the most seats went from $92 paying me right away if I wanted to take it like 15 minutes ago. Now it's paying me $13. So it looks like the Conservatives are not winning the most seats in New Brunswick. I want to see some maps. Like they pull up these maps and then they hide them so fast.
You have to pause it.
Oh, I can pause it. I was just going to look for an election map, but. So if you think whoever, like, from what I heard, basically whoever wins is basically just going to have to kowtow to the Americans.
Well, that's definitely be, it's going to have to be dealt with. And I mean, I guess that's what Canadians are voting for if they go this liberal way. They think Carney's the guy to deal with Trump, and he's the toughie that's he's going to wrangle that rascal Trump. That's what they believe, I guess. I'm not saying that Pierre would do better, but
no,
he's a rascal. He's a rascal, that guy.
Whoever's going down there is going to have to do a little puckering. There's no question about it. It's just that simple. It's kind of been the name of the game. And that's why, at least with Trump's plan, it'll just be corporate Canada that has to pucker, and the common Canada can actually have a breath of fresh air. Now, one thing I will say that makes me happy about this, what I'm looking at right here, is when they were showing Newfoundland was all red. And I'm like, I mean, I can get the city. Like, St. John, I get it, pretty liberal. But, like, I was like, these Newfoundlanders, they're a hardworking bunch. Like, they don't want taxes going up for nothing. I'm happy. It looks like it went conservative, is why I'm saying it. And then there's the gray area.
Yeah, I hear you.
I don't know. Are they done counting?
I guess gray is probably still not done counting. The rest are probably
okay.
Those are probably called, is what I would guess.
Yeah, you're right, because there's check marks on these thick ones. The gray one's no check mark, but that's leaning conservative.
Yeah, and look at the bar above. There's dark ones and light gray ones in the bar at the top.
Three light pinks. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah,
Three light pinks. Yeah.
See, a moment ago, that bottom right corner in Halifax, just below Halifax, that huge county, right there, that was blue.
Conservative. They were talking about that. The CTV was talking about that.
Exactly.
Yeah, it looks like Fredericton. Yeah, Saddam Hussein numbers. And St. John, they're calling it. Yeah, that's it. But there's not a lot of people living there. That's you would have thought. I mean, whatever.
St. John.
I just would have thought there would have been a little bit more voters. Like, yeah, this area, Bathurst. I guess that's Moncton. So fair enough. So I guess we're at 20 minutes and change till Quebec closes. And it looks like I lost that New Brunswick bet. And
you should have cashed out.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was waiting for you to come to show you the 92. Then I went to 76, and I was like, I'll just wait for it to go. Just back up a little.
Blame it on me, man.
I'm not blaming it. I'm blaming it on me. I'm just saying, like, what my thought was.
What about the big bet? He was still in the game?
Oh, yeah. I'm still in the game. I'm still in the game here. It's down to paying me $100 profit. So it's up 35%.
It's pretty good.
I mean, to be honest, will the Conservatives win the most seats pays $26 for my 15. I might as well. I'm just going to sell it. I'm taking that $26. Give me that. Wait, $5. What?
Ladies and gentlemen, watching this, watch Adrian lose everything he owns tonight.
No, this is a $15 bet, but I just don't know if there's. It looks like I could cash it out, but then I'm. Is there a profit selling 200? Will the Conservatives win the most seats in the cash? I'm gonna click cash out to see what this is all about, and so the bet's gone. I don't know what happened. Where the bet's still here. Cash out more. I think I just might have bought action or something. I have no idea what I just did.
See, that's where he said. That's where it starts.
Thank God it's $15.
That's where it starts.
That's where it starts. What are dice, Jay?
And on the they have been, pushing over the last few days, and the leader, Yves-François Blanchet, they feel as though the Liberals will form government, and so they have been driving home that they need to send as many Bloc MPs to Ottawa as possible. That has been the message.
All right, Jeremy Chiron at Bloc Québécois headquarters there. Thank you.
We're just keeping our eye on some of these results. We are less than 20 minutes away, just 17 minutes away from the bulk of polls closing across the country in Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Nunavut, and Northwest Territories, 267 ridings in all. We're going to start to see whether some of what has emerged in Atlantic Canada transpires in other parts of the country. I'm just looking at this battle we were talking about in Central.
Make it to that.
Interesting points about the Conservative focus there, the McKay's sort of legacy in that riding. But Sean Fraser and Bryce Jenkins, the Conservative candidate, neck and neck. Of course, Sean Fraser, a minister under the Trudeau government, and the incumbent in the riding. Who better to give us reaction to that dogfight than our Todd Battis, our senior anchor at CTV News in Atlantic Canada. Todd, what's your read on this?
Well, Vashi, this is really interesting. And, and just in the days leading up to this, Pierre Poilievre had not made a visit to Nova Scotia. So when he did come late in the campaign, the one rally he held was in Central Nova. And you saw Elmer MacKay and Peter MacKay, and they really are the elder statesmen of northern Nova Scotia. They came out and rallied in his support, endorsed him, and that was late in the campaign. So it'd be interesting to know if that had really an effect that may be giving Bryson Jenkins a bit of a push now. He's starting to separate a little bit, although, as you mentioned, it is quite close. But that would be quite something, and the Conservatives would be happy about that. I just want to mention something on the point that Judy Trin made about the NDP. In the Halifax riding, it was a vacant riding, and there was to be a by-election before the federal election was called, and the NDP had high hopes of winning that. Their candidate, Lisa Roberts, is currently third in the city of Halifax. It's already been declared elected by CTV News for the Liberal candidate there. But that gives you a sense of what's happening to the NDP vote in the Maritimes. But we'll keep an eye on that one in Central Nova as well. Cumberland Colchester, Dr. Stephen Ellis for the Conservatives is in a real tight race, and he had.
Well, I definitely think Pierre going to visit Central Nova had an effect. Like, there's clearly, if it's within 400 votes to knock out the incumbent, who was pretty high up in the Liberal administration there.
Yeah, he would have name recognition for sure.
Yeah, and MacKay supporting him. I was never a super fan of Peter MacKay, but I mean, if he's throwing support behind Pierre, then yay, step in the right direction. But it is kind of interesting that, like, what did she say? Like 274 polls are going to close, like, all like
15 minutes.
Yeah.
14 minutes now. Well, that should tell us something.
That explains the feeling that I was touching on earlier, where it always felt like super, like, whoop, and then just over. Like, you're just kind of like, where did it go? I thought we were, well, we haven't even got to Calgary yet. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, those people. The last guy in BC casting his vote when it's over. That's the complaint of the West. I don't blame them. Let's play with that as an idea. So what happens? Liberals win. Carney does his, green initiatives to the detriment of Alberta. There already seems to be 30% of people, pre-election are open to the idea of at least independence, not necessarily 51st or a smaller version of the Alberta as a state, but 30% of them are open to independence. And then Quebec follows. Like, are these on the horizon? I mean, Danielle Smith seems to not take no from nobody.
Well, what I would say, if you think about the reality of it, if Alberta were to separate, plain and simply, okay, what happens when, like, a small state close to Russia breaks away from their country? Even if they maintain their autonomy, like, what's going to happen, right? Like, you're just basically going to be an American vassal is what's going to happen. So I think if one province were to separate, I also think that would just break Confederation. Because then people would be looking at a variety of different situations. Like, hey, Atlantic Canada, let's start our own country. Hey, Quebec, you wanted to do your thing, have at her.
I don't think Atlantic Canada would.
No, they're too waiting on a check from Ottawa to go start their own thing. But the conversations would happen. You're right, because the talk is, like, apparently it's bigger in Saskatchewan now than it is in Alberta. Like, on average, as far as support is concerned.
Well, and as we spoke on the critical minerals, they provide 30% of the world's potash, nitrogen for fertilizer for growing food, and they provide United States 80% of the United States' potash, and 30% of the world. That's like nothing but an increasing in value and scarce resource as soil depletion the world over seems to be.
Food? Do you like food? I like food.
Yeah. Those who like food need Saskatchewan's potash.
Yeah, and are we going to is Trump going to let some communist, like, try and charge him triple or not sell it? I don't know.
Sell it is the biggest thing, yeah.
I also think that Yeah, Carney will just sell out anyways. He whatever. At the end of the day, what Carney does will just not be good for the common person. If you work for the government or own like a bunch of stocks and maybe certain mining companies or something, it might work out for you. But like, there will be stuff. I don't know. That's my problem with the Liberals. They always boondoggle it and just like start a bunch of like buddy companies when they could have just like cut taxes and let it naturally grow up from the grassroots. You know, like a entrepreneurship.
Yeah, but that's why everybody's like voting for Liberal here, because everybody in some regard or to some degree is suckling at that teat. So they don't want the who wants the spigot to turn off or to tighten? Nobody.
It's so true. It's just at what end, right? Like it's almost like a couple people are going for dinner on the Titanic, and then like there's a couple people like, no, but the iceberg's coming, and they're like, yeah, but we got caviar en route, so like you go do what you're doing. Like we're gonna go get the caviar. Not your that.
But that's how most people live, anyways. Like everyone's in debt there, anyways, but they're still buying. They're still out there. They're still refinancing, running up credit card debt, refinance, pay off credit card debt, rerun up credit card debt again. Continuous loop.
Apparently, the other one to watch, you are right, is that Markham one. It's Markham something with where they had that CCP affiliated candidate step down, and then the other CCP affiliated candidate stepped in for the Liberals.
CCP, or you mean PPC?
I mean Chinese Communist Party, like the affiliated.
Right, the guy who wanted to send the guy back for the ransom.
Yeah, so that Markham something, I think Markham Rosedale, but don't quote me. That'll be one to kind of keep an eye on. It will be I don't know, it looks like they still haven't stopped counting in the Maritimes, but it looks like maybe they have. What do we got? Yeah, we still got a couple of feints, and then some of the Quebec votes are coming in. So I just have a feeling it's going to be like a tsunami. Wait a second. What is?
Wait a second.
New Brunswick. I thought it got bluer, but it's like no. I was just so far out that it looked blue, but it was like no. Those are just massive.
Yeah, again, it's a rural urban divide. Probably, I mean, it's going to be that way across the country.
That way
Maybe
across
it's always
the world.
been that way.
Look at this farmers in Holland, like I don't think anyone says Holland anymore, but like you know what I mean, like it's and France.
I guess there's half the people want to be left alone to sink or swim, and the other half of people kind of want to be someone to make sure and make sure they're taken care of. I guess. I mean, I get both sides. It makes sense, but I'd rather just be left alone myself.
I just don't see how. I mean, I guess it's just nobody cares about the debt. Like my whole life, I remember my whole life. You'd always hear people talk about the deficit, and then if the Conservatives won, they spent just as much as the Liberals, and the Liberals would then spend more if they won. And it's like
Trump spending just as much, spending more.
Yeah. So maybe I'm the idiot for caring. Like there's some make-believe world, right, where that matters. Like I know there's a video game I play where you can run a country, and it's called Democracy 3 and Democracy 4. And every time I pay off the deficit, usually this like shady group assassinates me and the game ends. So like it just.
Oh really?
Yeah. Either that or the eco-terrorists kill me for like cutting income tax or whatever. They get pissed. But usually it's the shady banksters when I pay off the debt that just and that's just a video game. But if you're just like, right, like maybe I'm the idiot for caring about the deficit. Like,
well, like I've been wrong consistently about who's going to win in United States politics and Canadian politics for the last however many years. I have also been consistently wrong, expecting that there would have to be some type of housing correction, some type of something, and that hasn't happened in any meaningful way. Only the exact opposite. That keeps going to new heights that brains can't even comprehend, and it then goes up more, and then the economy gets worse and it goes up more. and then we have a pandemic and it goes up way more. Like, I don't know. So I'm the wrong guy to ask.
You know, it's like exactly like the numbers are getting bigger, but the tension is staying the same.
Yeah, that seems to be how it goes.
And I guess, you know, me being like a not like a rich person, why do I care? All right. I just kind of look at it like I see what happens to like third world countries when they default. And it doesn't seem to be pretty with their austerity measures. Like a lot of them sometimes have their debt wiped for certain things, but like it just seems like the whole world is in debt. And you're just kind of like, all right, well, maybe we could call this guy we owe the money to and get him to help us out. Like, what's going on? Or that gal we owe all the money to.
Yeah, I don't really know. Maybe that's the problem. Nobody really knows how it works when it all falls apart. I mean, that's what maybe everyone's trying to figure out and trying to sort out. Maybe that's why houses the cost of living's outstripping people's ability to survive.
Well, there's also a case to be made too that like we do consume too much, right? And you know,
sure, of course.
No, I think like the powers to be would be like, look, we didn't make you get a Prime account. We didn't make you buy the new iPhone every 2 years. We didn't make you upgrade your car every 4 years. You chose to do all those shiny things.
Yes, but those are irrelevant. Tiny bit relevant. But the issue being here is like, if you're in a third world country and you want to hustle for some dough, you stand on the corner and you sell the oranges. You can't do that here. They'll put a stop to that.
Yeah.
Here, you want to build on your piece of land a small, simple cabin, to get out of the weather, and you're going to have to live in a trailer for a few years to get that going. Try doing that in 99% of the municipalities in Canada. Like, no. Like, so you can't just tell people you have to give them an avenue to hustle or an avenue to escape the standards of living.
Ed, to your point, you should never, ever be penalized for working hard. Never, ever. Like, there's no way you want your country like that. That just makes zero sense. Like, it doesn't make... The only person who would come up with that is some Keynesian socialist economist, because nobody in their right mind would ever think, like, it's a good idea for everybody to start screwing the dog in November because they don't want to pay too much in taxes. Like, you want everybody to be going if they're ready to go. Like, if 100 people want to go sell oranges on my corner tomorrow, let them. Like, we don't need someone to come in with tickets. Like, the fruit flies are going to get them.
No, I get it, but if you live on that corner, but if you're the house that's on the corner and now you've got 4 orange sellers, 10 feet from your front door, I can understand. Like, so, I mean,
that goes back to our earlier point. Maybe different laws for Toronto,
right, exactly. But the problem is with all of it is it doesn't matter who wins, blue, red, green, purple, bloc. The problems that the governments in the West are facing, they're at insurmountable levels, and the best they can do is band-aiding. The best they can do. So, like, there's no way Canada keeps trudging along at its present rate, present standard of living decline, present decline in GDP, ranked in the GDP and standard of living with the worst state, Mississippi, in the United States. Running parallel there. Like, how long can that happen before? I mean, you'd think, here's the election, here's the chance for people to make some sort of change, but it seems like they're asking for more of the same. Overall, or at least a good 50% of them are. Or
I don't know. I agree. Definitely, there should be, and I heard some other people talk about it, saying what I've been saying for years, which is government employees should not be able to vote. Just full stop. You should just be doing a good enough job. Like, if you're doing a good enough job, you have nothing to worry about. But when you're unaccountable and when a third of the country works for the government, it's over.
Yeah, and know that a government, no matter what, even if they're not openly aggressive towards you, are at least more austere than business as usual with the Liberals for sure. Yeah.
Like at least with the actual mafia, they might get your grandson a job. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, at least. Yeah.
After they kill your husband and whatever, firebomb your house, they still might, that cleared the slate. They might give Timmy a job and you can start anew. But like, yeah, like yeah, you're right. It seems like I also think that like it might be better if the Conservatives don't win and let the Canadians have their cake and like let them get sick from eating it. And because I think like if Pierre comes in and like cleans it up a little bit, then they're just going to maybe come back in 3 years and be like, well, obviously he's racist.
So you're suggesting that if, I mean, your hypothesis is that for whatever reason they did good for the Liberals. They played literally the Trump card, and they won the election game with the problems that we were already having. Kanye exacerbates those problems over the next 4 years.
Blames them all on Trump.
Yeah, but the problems just get so bad that there's more of a likely of a chance of like a blue dynasty next election.
Or like, yeah, like you're like our city state jovial Soylent Green conversation, like true problems, like real, you can't like, I already thought we were there for like the last 9 years where people just didn't get it. But like, I thought that they would see, especially with the rising crime. But I guess it's like the mainstream media has done a number with like never covering anything nice about Trump for 10 years. Like, I guess that might be more than enough. I'm just trying to be silver lining that like if the Conservatives don't squeak out a minority, what the silver lining might be the perfect amount of medicine we need.
Okay, so let's I mean the likelihood the likelihood looks even a little bit we've seen of either one of them getting a majority seems low. We might find out here in the next few minutes.
Lower than this morning.
Yeah. So Conservative minority, what does that look like? Who can they work with?
Nobody. I think the other guys will team up, and they might have to squeak out like the odd backroom deal with the Bloc, but then the Bloc won't be there when they need them. It'll just be messy.
So the Bloc, I mean, the only one they could work with would be the Bloc.
I think whoever has the minorities, that's the only one they're going to be able to work with is the Bloc. So I think, again, the problem for this distracted Canada, it just works out well for Quebec. More government jobs, and you have to be bilingual, so that favors this province. Like, it just always wins for Quebec, and then they're still unhappy and acting like we don't like them.
Well, I mean, no, for sure. But I mean, are they unhappy or are they just politically good?
Well, it's when they're winning. Like, why would they change it? They're making it like bandits.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Again, it goes back to Alberta. Like, every reason for Alberta to turn the spigot off east. Like, enough is enough. The money spigot.
Apparently, there was an article today, I think, with one of the papers, I think it might be the Globe or something, or National Post, supposedly talking about how Alberta needs to be more thankful. Like, we bought them a pipeline, and like they never even said.
Yeah, I read that. I read that very article. The guy was like Alberta.
You have no idea. Like, those people do not want the government to do anything for them. They just other than leave them alone. All right, CTV's updating something here. Let's touch in.
Yeah, please. Find us something good. I'll be right back.
So far, they give us the play-by-play. Take a look at the other guys. Well, he's My apologies. I thought I was sharing that. Let's see what Chase Claypool is saying.
Overall. Sorry, I want to go back to the Canada 2020 election. Yeah, some of the ones that are actually called right now are being counted right now. Those were actually Liberal in 21. So none of this is that shocking. There are some of these slightly rural ridings that go Liberal. Okay, we're getting big results now. We are up to actually 17 to 26. I'm going to bring this up.
I'm going to bring up on these people like seeing the map and the numbers.
That's right.
So 26, 17, 5. But we have not started counting in the GTA really outside of Halderman, Norfolk, and Essex. I think Essex. Where did Essex go last time?
NDP?
Essex, if I can see it. Essex went Conservative last time. Okay, that would just be a hold. But it would be, if they can actually expand their lead in Essex, I believe that's a good thing, since they did not actually have that great of a showing last time. I always hate when the riding's named something like Essex and you look it up and it's like telling you somewhere in England. Yeah, in 2021, Conservatives won at 41% of the vote to 31% for the New Democrats, and the Liberals only got 13% of the vote. I wonder if that's going to advantage them heavily there, with a lot of people not used to voting Liberal at all.
You're going to swap over here. Looks like there's some numbers coming in from CTV.
And 52 polls reporting, Vashi.
And I think the results coming in, I think
Block's got some seats.
Lethbridge, Rachel Thomas, who's the incumbent there, public safety critic, among a host of other things for the Conservative Party. She's, at one poll reporting has a lead, not a surprise. Michelle Rempel-Garner, 6 polls reporting a commanding lead of nearly 1,000 votes for her. I would be shocked if anything different happened in that riding. It's a very safe Conservative seat, and she's a very well-known member of Parliament in Calgary.
In Surrey Moose Mountain, we see here that the Conservative is leading substantially by a vote lead of 407 votes. Again,
they're looking at Alberta and they haven't even finished counting Quebec. Something to me is funny about that.
Conservative incumbent with a lead of 1,500 votes right now.
And Alberta, another one of those places, and we heard this earlier from Tara Nelson, looking to see if there's any movement in some of the ridings the Liberals had hope. Hey, if things are as good as we think they might be, we could swing there. So far, no evidence of that, but obviously very, very early. And Lloyd are not one of the ones they thought they could pick up, but Lethbridge perhaps south of there.
Yeah, Alberta, obviously, as we know, Conservative stronghold, but we'll see if there are any gains that other parties are able to make there. Again, those results just trickling in as the polls have just closed about 7 minutes ago in the bulk of the country. We will be bringing those to you, but this is significant, this batch of results, Vashi.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, basically the path to government has to go through Ontario and Quebec, and the path to a majority certainly has to go through both of those provinces for whomever is able to secure government. I think particularly in certain parts of Ontario, we've heard it from many people tonight, but the Greater Toronto area, like if this is not going to be what the Liberals thought it was going to be, we're going to know there, right? The Conservatives will make significant gains there, or some gains there that will indicate something different happening in Ontario than perhaps the polls had predicted.
And so a couple of dominant storylines today, of course, who will win, who will form the next government, whether it's a majority or a minority. We could find that out momentarily. But then the other, storylines that come below that are the political futures of the other leaders. What happens on Vancouver Island with the Green?
Yeah, apparently May's supposed to lose her seat, just like Singh is. So it looks like that's. But again, I mean, who knows what's going to happen at all? But it looks like there could be a couple parties without a leader.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was saying. Imagine a world. PPC, Pierre Poilievre wins, majority, and Carney doesn't win his seat. May loses her seat, and Singh loses his seat. That would be an odd-looking parliament.
Well, that would be that would be something. Even Bernier's only got 30 seats in his own riding so far.
I mean, I always thought from the beginning that, like, there would have been something there for the PPC if they kind of just maybe, I don't want to say, like, they actually made a deal with the Conservatives, but maybe kind of, like, work something out where it's like, hey, we're going to target these 2 rural ridings in Alberta that, like, might even start a different party. You know what I mean? Might go further conservative. Let us have these. You guys can run a lame duck here, and we won't fight you elsewhere. And they could have just had like, but I guess the conservatives would look at that as like, that's our seat. We're just giving you. Why would we give you a seat?
Yeah. Especially, for sure.
But it's kind of like, I guess, I don't think there's ever been a riding where, maybe there has, where the PPCs vote. They've only been one other election, but where they could have added to the Conservatives and beat the Liberal in that riding. I bet you that maybe could have happened, but
last shot.
I also never liked the name of it. It just sounds so communist. I picture a bunch of like guerrilla rebels, like People's Party. It just sounds like, so dog and pony. Now let's see the barometer. Maybe let's see how the pulse of Rebel News already sounds a little happier. Let's see what they're saying.
We'll get some 80s in Alberta.
Yeah, you get them in the 80s. That's where
their tone's a little higher.
Superstar conservatives would get in the 80s. So I have now, as you say, this is just the first poll.
Like Rosemary Fox, she is at 85 right now, and I think they've declared.
Yeah, isn't that fun? Well, of course, the rural parts of Alberta are not what we're to cogitate over. It's
it's Toronto.
The cities. And the downtown of Toronto is obviously going to go Liberal. I live just north of the 401, which is the major east-west highway.
Pause this for a second, Adrian.
Toronto proper.
Okay, so I asked Perplexity here, has the Conservative Party ever lost seats as a result of losing the People's Party vote? An analysis of the 2019 and 2021 federal election found that vote splitting likely cost the Conservatives in the first election up to 24 ridings, particularly in regions like southwestern Ontario. And in 2019, the PPC was estimated to have cost the Conservatives about 7 seats.
So if they just gave them two in rural Alberta that were super conservative and going to start 4 other different conservative parties and be like, look, we'll support you there. Just leave us alone everywhere else.
Your observation was good. I didn't think I would have to say I didn't think it would have been that effective.
Well, I remember watching the Conservative leadership race when it was Scheer against Maxime, and it was like 7 votes. And then Scheer went up there with that glass of milk because he got the dairy vote from Quebec that pushed him over the edge, and he finally won on that 7th vote. And I just remember thinking, like, man, like, Maxime would have been so much better. Like, he seems a little bit more charismatic than Scheer, just more all-around charming. And being French, like, that definitely can't hurt in Quebec. Because, like, then when the election came, like, Scheer had no support in Quebec. So it was like whatever that milk you were drinking did nothing. It gave Trudeau another term. I hope you enjoy your milk. So I always kind of thought that maybe Maxime was a little bit more, I don't want to say principled because he seems to have principles, but like rational and principled, where maybe he could have worked something out. But I also feel like something must have happened between him and the party where he was like,
but why don't we just look at without getting into figuring some things out, let's take it at face value. What if he literally believes there's no voice for true conservatism in Canada, and he understands that just like the Greens and other parties in the past, it might take multiple election cycles to be taken seriously, but you have to start somewhere. So maybe he's just principled.
To your point that you were pondering at the beginning of our stream regarding like possibly a 2-party system, if you look at the history of Canadian politics, we more or less are and have always been that. Like essentially, like what happened was like when the parties got started way back, basically like the reason why they have the colors they have is because of the 2 parties in Quebec. Like one was red and one was blue, and like they both just happened to side with the different English Canada parties, the Tories and the Liberals, and they just picked their colors because of that. And the NDP kind of came back out of nowhere. Like they've always kind of been in the back, but they've never really been really much of anything like on a national scale of a threat, right? Provincially,
but they've certainly but they've certainly. I would say they're not as dismissive as. I mean, we just found out by looking at the CCP how many election ridings have gone the way. Like, so when you look in Canada, how many elections the NDP have, defeated. Well, I mean, the conservative side of the population. Like, I mean, it's huge. So they've definitely steered the boat, no question.
Well, but that's why, to my point, I agree. They've had an impact, right? And and even with Trudeau, I said from the beginning, like the NDP just got robbed because Trudeau's more left than they are. So like they have got their message out there and got to shape the reform that they claim to have wanted to shape in a lot of different ways. I just feel like you probably are right, and that might exactly like whatever happened between.
No, but how is the U.S. like? How is the U.S.
No, but whatever happened between Maxime and the Conservative Party must have been something where he was like, "Oh, this is like one bird and two wings. Like I got to start my own bird. Like it is a write-off. I don't even want to make deals with these guys because they have no moral scruples." There's a case to be made.
It could very well be.
Yeah.
My question is, the rest of the world sort of has these coalitions, or not the rest, or at least the rest of the world that I know of, has these multi-party coalitions, but the USA has basically become, obviously, it's a two-party system, period, with, the exception of a few independents here and there of no consequence, or minor consequence anyways. And I did hypothesize that we're being pushed towards a two-party system, but we still have, we have the outlet for the extreme left, the NDP, an outlet for the extreme right, the People's Party of Canada. How does USA do it? How do they do it where they don't have those release valves for these, the two extremes, the extreme ends?
Well, they're kind of like opposite Canada, where like they have that fringe third party and it is the Libertarian Party, and they have,
I guess,
and the Democrats absorb the socialists and try and sound like a socialist once every 4 years and then trick them in to the fold. And the socialists and what to say progressives have made quite a bit of headway. Like, I think there's quite a bit of boiling point going on right now. There seems to be some tension with David Hogg, the young guy who's been appointed to run the DNC, talking about primarying other Democrats, which is just like unheard of. But he's a progressive, right? And these are older Democrats who aren't really as progressive, I guess, as he would like. So to answer your question, they're like us, but opposite, where they have that third party, and it's just the Libertarian Party. But the Libertarian Party is pragmatic enough. Like they didn't get, but they didn't hurt. They got Trump the election, is what I was going to say. Like he went down and he met with the Libertarian. He went to their conference, and they were calling him out on certain things because I'm sure they didn't like the way he handled COVID, with Operation Warp Speed and all that, and a variety of other reasons not to like the man. But I think he did say, and he actually kept his promise, if you recall. He said, "I'm going to release Ross Ulbricht," and that was a big cause in the libertarian movement in the States, and he actually kept his word on that. That was like one of the couple first things he did. So I think he might maybe have gave them another taste, because that's the thing. Like I guess it's just a little bit fresher, right? So the PPC leaving right away, there's probably a little bit of that, obviously the parties were started for a reason. It started because there was a rift. So for me to be mad they didn't go back together and shake hands right away, obviously I'm dreaming, but yeah.
But this seems to be, this is we had the Reform Party. It seems to be the conservative playbook, as to, but ultimately, like we've discussed before, there's two fundamental ideologies that seem to be even genetically based, and half the population-ish.
People who want to be left alone and people who want to tell people what to do?
Well, that would be an ungenerous way of describing it, but you would say conservative people, the conservative people want to do things the way we've done it, and then the progressive people want to push the boundaries, and then like steel on steel, we sharpen ourselves as humanity by coming to some sort of compromise. Like So we would be foolish to think that we don't need both sides of the coin.
You need that yin and that yang, right? I agree with
Right.
you.
So we need them to be crazy, and we need the right wingers, even though we can't see why. It's not obvious, but we somehow need them too, because that's what humanity has done since before any of us got here. So we have to figure that out, how that works.
And we will. I just hope as few people as possible get hurt along the way to that lesson being learned. I hope we learn it sooner than later. You know what I mean? With minimal impact on peace and tranquility, like whatever that is. Okay, the numbers are quite big now. What's going on here?
Let's check in.
Let's see what the Alberta lawyers say.
To central Canada and the other parts of the country. And thirdly, we have Donald Trump as the president who
Okay, I don't care about like the talking points. I kind of just want like the play-by-play. And again, CTV's winning the day for that.
About whether those advanced polls are being counted at the same time or if they're still outstanding, and whether that can have an impact on the final results.
That election is still 300 votes. Bryce Jenkins, Scott Fraser. It's been 300 votes for a while.
Nova Scotia, so that's certainly where the advanced pollings of the advanced votes.
Thank you, Gerard Romasa and Jesse McDonald.
That could have an impact on that. Go quickly to another one. Colchester, also in Nova Scotia, the incumbent Dr. Stephen Ellis, his numbers have been waxing and waning. He's up 1,000 votes now. We'll certainly keep a close eye on this one because, again, this is one that the Conservatives would dearly love to hold if they're going to have a good showing here in Atlantic Canada. But certainly the star seat or the star riding so far the night right now is Central Nova Scotia, and we'll watch that carefully. Okay, let's go to Montreal and Matsumi.
Well, we said earlier in the evening that Trois-Rivières was a riding to watch. The Bloc's got to be worried at this point. All the candidates in this riding, they're not really well known. So what that means is this riding, it's about the parties and the party leaders. It's a real three-way race. Going into it tonight, it was too close to call. Right now, the incumbent Bloc is running third after the Liberals and Conservatives. It is early yet. But that's not a good sign because this riding is thought to be a very good indicator of what might happen here in Quebec. We'll take a look at the other riding in the Gaspé. We've been talking about that for a while because the results here came in about 30 minutes earlier because it's in an earlier time zone. It's really, really tight. It's been going back and forth between the Bloc and the Liberals. The Bloc has put in a fairly well-known media personality here, Alexis Deschênes, but as we say, it's still really, really close. They're still going
that
back
handsome
and
devils
forth.
on the news.
But overall, especially what's happening in Trois-Rivières and also what's happening in Gaspé, the Bloc cannot be very happy tonight so far. Let's see what's going on in Ottawa now. Patricia?
All right, Matsumi, we want to come back to the Carleton riding, which is such an interesting one in so many ways. Pierre Poilievre has held on to it since 2004, but he has never seen this kind of competition, at least in terms of numbers. 91 candidates in that Carleton riding where the ballot is nearly a meter long. I don't have the actual ballot here, but I printed out the names. It's 3 pages worth. And we don't have any results, as you can see yet. It's all very interesting because not only do we have that long ballot with all the names on there, part of a protest from a group called the Longest Ballot Committee. They're protesting the current first past the post electoral system. So could be some delays because of all those names, but it also...
We should look into that committee for fun. The Longest Ballot Committee. I'm going to send a reminder.
Country. So there's a lot of ballots to count. To mitigate delays, Elections Canada said they were going to begin counting those ballots cast in the advance polls 6 hours before polls closed. Extra teams being brought in. But as you can see, we do not have any numbers out of that key Carleton riding where Pierre Poilievre's running just yet. We want to go back over to Toronto and the Greater Toronto area and Michelle now.
Thanks, Patricia. Well, the polls have closed here in Toronto and the GTA, and we're starting to get some of the numbers rolling in here in this vote-rich part of the country. I want to draw your attention to Ajax. This is a riding we've been watching. This was Mark Holland's riding, not running for re-election. Jennifer McKelvey running for the Liberals in this riding. She's well known. She was a councillor. She was interim mayor of Toronto for a while. She's hoping to keep the seat red. Greg Brady is a well-known Canadian radio host. He has a show, Toronto Today. So far, Jennifer McKelvey is leading, but we only got one of the polls reporting. This is certainly one that could be a battle, and we'll be watching. And then Markham Stouffville, interesting so far. This is incumbent Helena Jasek's riding. Right now, we have the Conservative candidate, a police officer who seems to be leading. But again, it's early days. But it is nice to see some results starting to come in, and I think shortly we'll be getting a better sense of if there are.
I think this might be the end of the People's Party, which might be a blessing in disguise. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's not a blessing because, like we were saying, there doesn't seem to be anybody with scruples. But I don't think Canadians like scruples. Scruples are.
We also don't know the reason it's scruples. It could be something as simple as his feelings were hurt, and he'll show them.
Right. I think you might be more right than you know, to be honest with you, though, because
we don't know. So.
Of course we don't. We're pontificating. I don't know anything. But, I mean, like a lot of the vote numbers seem to be, I would bet a lot of the, like, I don't know, you'd have to, if you got like smash, you know what I mean? Like if the Liberal got like 2,000 and the Conservative got 1,800 and you got like 37, I'm probably not coming out next time.
Yeah.
That's just me. What do I know? There's
do to help secure their financial future. He might be able to harness some of that young vote tonight, and that could be what pushes him over the edge. We'll keep an eye on it, but it's going to be a close race. Let's go to Mi Zhang in Vancouver.
Thank you, Tara. 3 more minutes till polls close here in BC. BC may be the last to vote, definitely not the least. There are 43 ridings up for grabs, many too close to call. If the Liberals are on the path to victory, depending on what happens in the rest of the country, it could come down to BC. The Liberals need to hang on to ridings like Vancouver Centre, home to Canada's oldest MP, Hedy Fry. She's running for re-election. Some say she is unbeatable. Hedy Fry's 83, has been serving in the parliament since 1993. She was a rookie then who took down former Prime Minister Kim Campbell. Liberals are also banking on retaining North Vancouver Capilano, which is held by Cabinet Minister Jonathan Wilkinson. And he won handily last time around. We're also watching Burnaby North Sea.
It did catch me when she's like, BC might take too long to count. And if you recall, their provincial election, like last month, took a month to count. So that'll be crazy if we have some American-style chicanery where it's like, BC's still counting, and you're just like, what the heck?
Oh, and then the mail-in or the early votes haven't been added yet, and the ballot box went home, and the
car broke down with the votes in it. We just found it. We just found it.
We'll go to bed thinking it's a Conservative minority. We'll wake up in the morning, it'll be a Liberal minority. That'd be fun.
That'd be something.
I guess the North loves the Liberal teat as well.
Yeah, I heard something about the Northwest Territories, which, yeah, I could see the territories just wanting more handouts. Like, I could see that because their whole society's like just built with like different rules and stuff like that. They just want to know another check's coming in. But yeah, I don't know. It seems, here's what I'm gauging. It seems like nobody expected the results like in Newfoundland and whatnot. But it doesn't seem like it seems bad again. It seems like everyone seems defeated again. Like nobody's cheerleading one way or the other, but the Liberals don't seem sad.
So the Yukon receives 65% of the Yukon's GDP is from the federal government.
Ooh, I'm a psychic. Yeah. They haven't counted their vote in yet, but what about the Northwest Territories?
$68, even more so.
Yeah. So you don't want that. No one's going to vote for the spigot to turn off.
Exactly.
Because it's also one of those where, like, even if they voted for the Conservatives, the Liberals been in power so long, there's so many guardrails up that you couldn't do anything.
Yeah, you just get the same sort of bureaucratic backlash and legal backlash that Trump's getting.
Get those oranges off the street, you terrorist. Yeah. Nobody wants your oranges.
Yeah, not on the Yukon anyways. $50 a piece.
What is going on here? What is this I see? NDP got, Communist Edmonton. Leduc. It's just that's where the airport is. That's where the airport is. Southern Edmonton. So the airport's right here, and you like drive into Edmonton. So that's like it's south. It's just south of Edmonton. The university would be in one of these guys over here. I think Edmonton Riverbend would be if I'm not mistaken. So the NDP's got one seat, and that looks like it's the one. And it's one of those things, too, you always wonder in the States where you're just like, you can see like Florida had those issues with the Al Gore, George Bush thing with election. And it seems like a lot of the talk is like they got their shit together. They organize it so that it can be thorough and quick and efficient. And you just see that like even with Canada where it's like, how does Leduc have their voting done, but we're still waiting on like Sarnia and Owen Sound.
Yeah, but I think they don't call them if they're close to vote or if the vote's close too. Like they don't like. So maybe that riding is like 65% of the precincts are in or whatever, and the vote is 65%. Then they go, wow, it's clearly going to go that.
That's true because you're right. This is just like less than 100 votes, or yeah. So, well, the CTV's been good to us. Maybe they're panicking. Let's hope they're panicking and.
Going to take a look now at the CTV News Decision Desk projections as of right now in this moment in time. Projecting the Liberals could get a minimum of 146 or a maximum of 178 seats, potentially, possibly crossing that 172 marker point of a majority government. They also are projecting the Conservatives could get a range of anywhere from 117 to 146 seats. But these numbers are shifting as your votes are counted. Of course, this has to do with historical data, riding demographics, a lot of research, and of course, the numbers that are coming in this evening as your votes are counted. Projections right now also for the NDP and the Bloc Québécois, we're watching that closely. But again, the majority is the number that most parties are, of course, the Conservatives and Liberals looking for this evening. So we're keeping a very close eye on that marker of 172. Back to you.
All right, Heather, thank you so much. And let's head over to Anne-Marie right now. Anne-Marie, you've got a couple of your panelists from British Columbia right now who I'm sure are watching those results, tracking them pretty closely. A good BC delegation on your panel tonight.
That's right. We've got more than half of our panel is from BC. Who wants to jump in here first?
In the last election campaign, the Liberals finished third in the popular vote, but came first in the seat totals. Liberals got 26% of the vote province-wide, but got 15 seats. Conservatives got 13 seats. NDP got 13 seats. So the dynamic in British Columbia, very regional province, and how the splits are going to go. We see in all the rest of the country, the NDP vote has collapsed. In parts of British Columbia, working class parts of British Columbia, on the island, working class suburbs south of the Fraser River, the NDP second choice ballot can be
Barbara Ball.
2-1 Conservative over Liberal. But for most of the province, and certainly in Metro Vancouver, the second choice for NDP voters breaks 2-1 Liberal over Conservative. So I think you'll see basically two colors of members of Parliament coming out of British Columbia. You'll see reds and blues. I think maybe a couple in the Democrats, Jenny Kwan probably in Vancouver East, Don Davies perhaps in Vancouver Kingsway, Peter Julian if he's lucky, and those will probably be the only three. I don't think Elizabeth May will win on the island, and so it's interesting. You know, all the aggregating polling data that you show out of 43 ridings in British Columbia, they show up to a third of the seats in the province being up for grabs, either two-way fights, three-way fights.
Yeah.
So as the polls close, a lot of those ridings are going to be very close to watch and very tight to call right up until the last probably 10 or 20 polls.
Arthur, what do you want to say here?
No, absolutely. The NDP vote, a lot of it, I've been talking to a lot of supporters. A lot of them actually have been coming over to the Liberals, very concerned again about what's taking place with President Trump, making sure that we have a strong showing. The ridings to kind of look out for is Victoria for us, something that we've done well in, but we haven't been able to get it across the line before. I think there's a very good opportunity now. Port Moody, James and I know both of you are from there.
Yeah.
Have an opportunity there. And don't forget, there's also Kelowna. If that flips, that's also going to send a very strong message. Steve Fiore, who's actually running again, he used to be the member of Parliament there. So we have an opportunity there. I think BC is going to have a very strong showing.
All right, I'm gonna pop over to Rebel here. It looks like they're at the they're talking to the girls who are at the Conservative place in Ottawa.
Conservative Watch Party. It keeps kind of rotating through all of the media channels. So there's CTV, CBC, Global News, and it's like an automatic rotation every 30 seconds to a minute. They're just rotating through. So we've seen a lot of Rosemary Barton and David Cochrane, but not here in the flesh. And, you know, she was saying some really interesting things back when the polls were just closing in the Maritimes. Charlottetown specifically, she was like, oh, I'm so relieved that Charlottetown is okay. Yeah. And it's like, Rosemary Barton's not even pretending anymore to be a nonpartisan hack. Like, it's on full display.
She sued the
They
Conservatives.
are telling you exactly.
She sued the Conservatives when she ran. Her true colors were shown.
Closing. Made that
Years ago.
Very, very clear and so brazen that even I was a little bit shocked. Like, you know how they would like the vote to go, but when they say it blatantly like that live on air, there's no disputing that they are in it for the Liberals.
Well, I mean, let me remind you that in the 2021 election, Rosemary Barton was the plaintiff in a lawsuit against the Conservative Party of Canada filed during the election campaign. So you're the Ottawa reporter covering the campaign, and you choose to sue one of the parties in the middle of the campaign. And this is okay? Like, that is so crazy. I don't know. That's just the CBC. This was a life or death election for them. Hey, let me ask you about the mood in the room. I think people are probably just waiting for more information, as we are too, because the Atlantic is interesting, but it's vote-rich Ontario that's the big prize. What's the vibe in the room? Are people optimistic? Are they terrified? What's going on?
So I spoke with some people previously, and they are really hopeful that the Conservative will win. I would say that some people are really worried if the Liberals are winning, though. What they are saying, they say we will see industrial carbon tax coming back, and we will see also censorship and all those issues that we passed through in the decades. I would say that it started under Trudeau and then they are saying that it will get worse.
That's that. We need more Paul's feeling.
Elected. And so, you know, we've done what we can provincially in terms of it, but it's a delicate balance, of course, for a federal leader, because we've got to play to a much broader audience across the country, not just to the local side. And Pierre's campaign, of course, was no different than most campaigns in terms of how they like to play that.
Mr. Rossett, I want to be respectful of your time. It's really great to have you on the show tonight.
We might touch base with you later, depending on what's going on. But I take what you said so far about the Conservative Party performance, and we will see if it turns out to be true that maybe they are having a better night than what I'm treated poorly by electoral results. So we'll see what actually ends up happening once the polls close in BC.
Well, when we looked at the polling results, some of the internal poll stuff that we did, and that I looked at, it was a lot tighter than what the public polls were suggesting. And I think we saw that play out in Atlantic Canada, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out in Ontario. And like I say, I'm looking for some gains for the Conservative Party in British Columbia. In terms of it would be wonderful to see those additional gains in British Columbia as being the seats that could make a difference in terms of who's going to form the next government. But thanks for having me on. I look forward to maybe chatting again later.
Yeah, right on. Thank you, Mr. Rustad. I appreciate it. We are going to throw to Sue Ann, who is at the Liberal Party headquarters with a report for us for Juno News, where she's sort of describing what is going on at the Liberal Party headquarters. We'll throw to that now, please.
Standing in front of the Ottawa venue where Liberal leader Mark Carney's election night event is to be held. And I have watched journalists from Reuters, from Washington, from the Times of London, from Slovakia, from Germany, from Italy, from Spain, walk in and be accredited to cover the event. But little old me from True North is not allowed to enter. In fact, I was.
So it looks like everybody's just kind of waiting for like an update. Like nobody's
They
got.
seem generally optimistic for Conservatives.
Well, Rebel seems happier than they've seen all day. That's below bar. Yeah, I mean, Keane was just talking to John Rustad, talking about BC, and he brought up a good point. It'd be nice to see the Conservative seats in British Columbia be the ones to seal the deal. It would show that it's like a full national front. But as you can see by these numbers from the Toronto Star that I'm presenting to you, the Liberals are looking pretty good right now. Yeah. So none of it. Ask ChatGPT what none of it. How much federal welly they get? They went NDP. It must be quite the splash.
A lot more.
More money me. What do we got? Is this? We got London. Okay, they still don't have. Yeah.
%81.
Oof. Like, yeah, government employees should not be voting. Just do a good job, earn your seat back. I'm trying to get I guess that's as far as it goes. I mean, yeah, I guess we're kind of at the mercy of Southern Ontario right here. Like this little pocket outside of Kitchener, Hamilton, Cambridge area, Woodstock, is kind of looks like it could be the deciding factor. Now I know the Tespler and Cambridge riding were polled to go Liberal, but I know some people on the ground there, and they a couple people that I've heard, and even friends and people on YouTube who've done the yard sign poll. Just counting their drive. Anecdotal as anecdotal gets. But everybody's been like, it's double Conservatives to Liberal signs. So maybe Liberals just hate signs. But this seems to be like the deciding factor. At present.
Yeah. It doesn't look good, ultimately.
It looks even worse on CTV right now. Let's have they have 39. They have 136 for the Libs.
Bashi, yes, we are looking at that Liberal win. And of course, the results that people want to know, well, how did you get here? How did we declare this Liberal win? And that is declared by our CTV News decision desk. And we'll take a look at our projections for where we can go this evening now once we have declared that win. So the decision desk, the House of Commons projection probability of a majority actually is 24% for the Liberals. So that is the probability of a majority. And I believe we're now going to look at the House of Commons projection. So we are projecting the Liberals could get anywhere from 152 to 180 seats. That would be the maximum this evening. And of course, crossing that number, that 172 majority marker that we've been talking about this evening. And looking at the Conservatives, the decision desk is projecting the Conservatives will receive winning anywhere between 119 and 144 seats this evening. And of course, that not lining up with the minimum of the Liberals. And so that's how that math, of course, works out. These numbers based on historical data, riding information that we receive, research, and of course, your votes, because we have been watching these numbers ebb and flow. It's a forecast, it's a range. And so they've been moving this evening as your votes are counted and come in through those polling stations. Of course, take a look at the Bloc Québécois and the NDP. The decision desk projecting anywhere to 30 seats would be the maximum for the Bloc Québécois.
Well, we've been going 2 hours and some odd. That's probably a good place to wrap it up.
Looks like the Liberals won.
It looks like the Liberals are going to win, and I guess we can do an addendum on the end tomorrow when I post it, that what the final results were. But, well, it was fun trying to learn how to do something new. But let's say good night, everybody. Liberal win, majority, minority, we'll tell you later. Bye.
Bye.